The Forbidden Path. The village of Umoka stood on the edge of the vast and mysterious Okija Forest, a place that had lived in the whispers of the people for generations. No one dared to step beyond its thick, twisting trees, for those who entered never returned. It was said that the spirits of the forest were watchful, judging the hearts of all who came near. One fateful night, a chilling wail rose from the palace. Princess Adanne, the beloved daughter of King Obi, had vanished. The palace guards searched every corner of the kingdom, but she was nowhere to be found. The only trace of her was a delicate golden bracelet lying at the forest edge. The village oracle, Elder Chika, was summoned at once. His face was grave as he gazed at the bracelet. He placed his wrinkled hands on the ground and whispered a prayer to the ancestors. The air around him grew thick, and his body trembled as he opened his eyes. "The spirits have taken her," Elder Chika announced. His voice was hoarse with sorrow. "She walks in the land between worlds, trapped by the shadows of Okija. If she is not retrieved within 7 days, she will be lost forever." Gasps spread through the gathered villagers. The king clenched his fist. "Tell me what must be done," he demanded. "The spirits allow only 7 to enter," Elder Chika said. 7 souls who will face the trials of the forest. They must be brave, clever, and pure of heart. The king's mightiest warriors stepped forward. Among them were Obesai, the village's strongest fighter, a man whose hands had crushed enemies in battle. Ifena, the swiftest tracker, whose eyes could see footprints even on dry rock. Dike, the spear master, who never missed his mark. Namdi, the shield bearer, who could withstand the strongest blows. Ikin, the silent blade, whose movements were as light as the wind. Zobom, the healer, skilled in herbs and protective charms. The 6th was chosen. But Elder Chika frowned. "The 7th has not yet come." The villagers looked around in confusion. Then, from the crowd, a voice spoke. "I will go." Heads turned to see Emeka, a farmer with dirt-stained hands. His tunic was patched, his face lean from years of toil. The warriors scoffed. A farmer. What could he offer? The king, too, looked uncertain. "You are not a warrior," he said. Elder Chika studied Emeka for a long moment. Then, he nodded. "The forest does not need only warriors. It tests the mind as well as the blade. He will go." The warriors grumbled, but the oracle's word was final. Before the 7 set off, Elder Chika handed each of them a protective charm, a small wooden amulet carved with ancient symbols. "Keep this close," he warned. "Lose it, and the spirits will claim you." He also gave them an old map, its edges frayed and yellowed with age. Strange symbols were marked along the path. This map was left behind by the last who entered. Few returned. "Heed its warnings, or you will join the lost souls of the forest." With their weapons, charms, and determination, the 7 ventured forth. The journey begins. As they stepped past the first tree, the world seemed to shift. The light of the sun dimmed, and a cold breeze whispered through the trees. The ground was soft, almost as if it breathed beneath them. Shadows danced between the trunks, moving without a source. Then came the whispers. At first, they were faint. Murmurs, drifting on the wind. But as they walked, the voices grew louder. Some called their names. Others laughed. A few wept. Emeka shivered. "Do you hear that?" Ifena nodded, his face pale. "They are watching us." "Keep moving," Obesai grunted. He gripped his blade tighter. "Spirits or not, we do not stop." But the whispers changed. They became clearer, sharper. "Turn back. Go no further. Your bones will be ours." A sudden gust of wind howled through the trees. The map in Zobom's hands fluttered wildly, almost escaping his grasp. The warriors drew their weapons. But there was nothing to fight. Just the wind. The trees. The voices. Then, up ahead, the path split into three. The map was marked with symbols, but none of them knew what they meant. We must choose wisely, Emika said, eyeing the paths. If we take too long, we lose time, Dyke replied. We have 6 days left. The warriors debated. The left path was narrow, with twisting vines hanging like nooses. The middle was flooded, covered in knee-deep water. The right was clear, but a thick mist obscured what lay ahead. The mist hides something, Ifena muttered. The water could have spirits, Zobom added. Obesai cracked his knuckles. The left may be difficult, but it's the only one that shows us what we face. I say the middle, Dyke countered. We can wade through the water. No, Emika said suddenly. He knelt and picked up a rock. Tossing it forward, it landed on the right path. Instantly, the ground crumbled, revealing a pit filled with writhing shadows. The warrior stepped back in horror. The mist was a lie, Emika said. It was hiding a trap. The warriors looked at him with newfound respect. The left path it is, Ifena said. They stepped carefully, pushing through the vines. The forest grew darker with every step. The whispers faded, but a new sound replaced them. A soft, distant weeping. The sound of a child. Ikin tensed. A child. They moved forward cautiously. Then, through the trees, they saw him. A small boy, no older than 10, sat beneath a massive tree. His face was streaked with tears. A heavy log lay across his leg. Help me, he whimpered. Obesai stepped forward, but Emika grabbed his arm. Wait. What? Emika's eyes were sharp. Something is wrong. Obesai frowned, but then they heard it. The boy was crying. But his lips were not moving. A chill ran through them. Please, the voice came again. But Emika was already backing away. That is not a child. Then, suddenly, the boy vanished. In his place, a shadowy woman stood. Her eyes were hollow. Her mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. The log lifted into the air on its own, twisting and hurling itself at Obesai. The warriors leapt aside just in time. The woman screamed, her voice splitting into many. The whispers returned, now filled with rage. Run! Ifena shouted. They sprinted down the path, the ghostly woman chasing them, her fingers stretching unnaturally long. The air grew colder. Their charms burned against their skin, repelling the spirit's grasp. Ahead, a massive wooden archway stood at the entrance of a clearing. It was marked with ancient carvings. The first trial. Emika was the first to step through. The moment he did, the spirit let out an ear-piercing shriek and disappeared into mist. They collapsed to the ground, panting. The first trial, Zobam said. And we barely survived. Obesai looked at Emika with new respect. You saved my life, farmer. Emika gave a small smile. We are all in this together. They looked ahead. The path stretched deeper into the forest. The trials were only beginning, the cursed river. The warriors stood before the massive wooden archway, the air still heavy with the echoes of the spirit's scream. The whispers had faded, but a deeper sense of unease settled over them. Beyond the archway, the path sloped downward into the heart of the forest, disappearing into darkness. We keep moving, Obesai grunted, tightening his grip on his weapon. Emika studied the ground ahead. The earth was loose, the incline steep. We'll have to slide down, he warned. If we must, then let's go, Ifena said. One by one, they braced themselves and stepped forward. The ground gave way beneath their feet, and they plunged into the darkness, sliding faster and faster down the steep ravine. The ride was chaotic. Vines snapped past them, branches scratched their arms. The air grew damp and thick, and before they knew it, splash! They hit water. The cursed river. The warriors gasped for breath as they surfaced in a glowing green river. The water shimmered unnaturally, casting an eerie light on their faces. The river was silent, too silent. Not even the sound of insects or birds could be heard. Zobom shuddered. This place is cursed. Emeka swam toward the shore, but as he did, he noticed something. The water was pulling him back. Not just him. All of them. I can't move forward. Ikin shouted, struggling against the current. This river doesn't want us to leave, Dyke growled. Before they could react, the voices returned. Soft. Sweet. Gentle. Rest, travelers. Stay with us. Emeka's eyes widened as figures began to emerge from the water. Pale hands reached toward them, ghostly faces rising just below the surface. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths moving in silent whispers. They are trying to drag us under. Ifena shouted. A beautiful woman with long, flowing hair drifted near Emeka, her expression sorrowful. You must be so tired, she murmured. Rest, and all your pain will fade. For a moment, Emeka felt an overwhelming urge to let go, to sink beneath the surface and disappear. But then, don't drink the water. The warriors turned to see an old woman standing at the river's edge. Her hair was wild, her robe tattered. But her eyes burned with an unnatural light. Don't drink, she repeated. Or you'll never return. A warning. But before they could act, a loud gasp broke the air. Zobom. He had cupped the water in his hands and taken a sip. His body jerked violently, his eyes turning pitch black. Zobom. Ifena cried, reaching for him. But before anyone could react, shadowy hands burst from the water, grabbing Zobom's arms, his legs, his throat. He let out a choked scream as he was dragged beneath the surface. Gone. The warriors were frozen in horror. We have to get out of here, Emeka said, shaking off his fear. But the river wasn't letting them go easily. The spirits surged forward, grasping at their arms, their legs, their weapons. The old woman hurled something into the water, a pouch of crushed herbs. The spirits recoiled, hissing as they faded. Go. Now, she ordered. With renewed strength, the warriors fought against the current, swimming toward the shore. One by one, they crawled onto the muddy riverbank, gasping for breath. The river behind them grew still once more, as if nothing had happened. The path to the shrine. The old woman stood before them, arms crossed. Fools, she muttered. Did you not hear the whispers? The forest speaks to warn you. Obesai, still catching his breath, scowled. Who are you? I am called Nwani, the guardian of this land, she said. You seek to pass through Okija, but you do not understand its rules. Everything here has a price. We need to save Princess Adanne, Ifena said. The old woman sighed. I know. But you have already lost one. More will fall if you do not listen. She pointed ahead. A narrow path wound along the riverbank, leading to an ancient shrine hidden in the mist. You must pass the shrine to continue. But beware, the spirits inside will test you. She looked at Emeka. Your wit will be your greatest weapon. Before Emeka could respond, the old woman vanished into thin air. The warriors exchanged uneasy glances. We move, Obesai said grimly. They followed the path, walking in silence. The loss of Zobom weighed on them. The forest had claimed its first victim. How many more would fall? After a long trek, they arrived at the shrine. The riddles of the spirits. The shrine was ancient, its stone walls cracked with age. 3 large masks hung above the entrance, their hollow eyes staring down at them. As they stepped inside, the doors slammed shut. A deep, echoing voice rumbled through the air. Answer correctly, and you may pass. Fail, and you join the river's dead. The first mask glowed red. Riddle 1, I am not alive, but I grow. I do not have lungs, but I need air. I do not have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? The warriors exchanged glances. Emika spoke first. Fire. The mask's eyes dimmed. Correct. The second mask glowed blue. Riddle 2, the more of me you take, the more you leave behind. What am I? Ifena frowned. The more you take, the more you leave. Footsteps, Emika said. The mask's glow faded. Correct again. The final mask glowed green. Riddle 3, what can run but never walks, has a bed but never sleeps, has a mouth but never talks. The warriors were silent. Emika thought for a long moment, then whispered, a river. The mask's glow vanished. The doors creaked open, revealing the next path. They had passed. Moving forward. The warriors stepped out of the shrine, the tension finally lifting. They had survived the second trial. But as they walked ahead, the whispers returned. Soft. Laughing. The forest was waiting for them. And it was far from dawn, the trickster boy and the bridge of shadows. The warriors left the shrine behind, their steps heavy, their minds restless. The cursed river had taken one of their own, and the spirits had tested their wit. Each challenge reminded them that the forest was alive, watching, waiting for them to falter. The path ahead wound through ancient trees, their twisted roots breaking through the earth like skeletal fingers. The whispers had returned, soft, mocking, but always there. Keep your charms close, Ifena muttered, adjusting the amulet around his neck. Trust nothing, Obesai added, gripping his weapon. Then, suddenly, a child's cry. The warriors halted. Just ahead, sitting at the base of a gnarled tree, was a weeping boy. His body was thin, his ribs visible beneath his tattered tunic. His face was buried in his hands, his small shoulders shaking with sobs. Ikin stepped forward. A child. The boy sniffled, looking up with wide, teary eyes. Please, help me. His voice trembled, weak and desperate. His leg was pinned beneath a fallen tree branch. He looked so helpless. Obesai was already moving. We can't leave him here. Emika's voice cut through the air like a blade. Wait. Obesai stopped, frowning. What? Emika's sharp eyes studied the child. The leg wasn't crushed, there was no blood, no bruising. The weight of the branch was light, something even a boy his size could push off. It was a trap. Don't go near him, Emika warned. Obesai hesitated, but the boy's tears grew heavier. Please, he whimpered. It hurts. Lies, Emika said. The boy's crying stopped. The air grew still. The child lifted his head slowly, and his eyes, once warm and innocent, were now glowing red. A cold, cruel smile stretched across his lips. Then, in a voice that was no longer human, he whispered. You are clever. The boy's form shattered into mist, his laughter echoing through the trees as he vanished into nothing. The warriors stood frozen, their breath caught in their throats. Ifena exhaled sharply. That was no child. No, Emika agreed. It was something else. Obesai clenched his fist. We have to keep moving. And so they did, more cautious than before. The bridge of shadows. The path led them to a cliffside, where a massive wooden bridge stretched across an endless abyss. It was old, its ropes frayed, its wooden planks cracked and weathered. The mist below was thick, swirling with unseen movement. "This doesn't feel right," Dyke muttered. Then, from the shadows, something moved. A deep, rattling hiss filled the air as a serpent-like creature slithered into view. It was massive, its body covered in dark, glistening scales. Its eyes burned with eerie golden light. Around its neck hung a chain of skulls. The warriors instinctively raised their weapons, but the creature only laughed, a deep, vibrating sound. "Mortals," it hissed. "You stand before the bridge of shadows. None may pass without a price." Obesai stepped forward. "What price?" The serpent's tongue flicked. "A life." Silence. Emika's heart pounded. The forest demanded blood at every turn, and this bridge was no different. But he would not let them lose another. He stepped forward, his mind racing. "A life is a heavy price," he said carefully. "Perhaps there is another offering." The serpent tilted its head. "What else do you have that is worth more than life?" Emika reached into his pouch and pulled out a golden bracelet, one of the enchanted relics Elder Chika had given them for protection. "This," Emika said, holding it up. "This is no ordinary bracelet. It carries the power of the spirits. If you claim this, you claim their favor." The serpent hissed, intrigued. "A spirit's favor?" Emika nodded. "With this, you will have their blessing, their strength. No longer will you need to guard a bridge. You will become something greater." The serpent's golden eyes flashed greedily. It lunged forward, snatching the bracelet in its coils. For a long moment, it was silent, examining its prize. Then, it slithered aside. "Go." Emika exhaled. He had won. Obesai grinned. "You're smarter than you look, farmer." One by one, they stepped onto the bridge. A crumbling path. The wood groaned beneath their weight. The ropes creaked, fraying further with every step. The mist below seemed to swirl faster, almost hungrily. Emika was the last to step on. As his foot touched the bridge, crack! The entire bridge lurched downward. "Move!" Ifena shouted. They ran. Wood splintered. Ropes snapped. Planks fell away, disappearing into the abyss below. The warriors leapt over gaps, barely catching the edges before they could fall. Behind them, the bridge collapsed, piece by piece. The mist rose, whispering, "Fall, fall, fall." Ikin slipped. His fingers grasped the broken edge, his legs dangling over the void. Emika lunged, grabbing his arm. "I won't let go." Emika gritted his teeth, pulling with everything he had. Obesai and Dai grabbed hold, yanking Ikin to safety just as the final section of the bridge shattered behind them. They tumbled onto solid ground, panting, shaking. The bridge was gone. They had made it. But the whispers were still laughing. The forest was waiting. The jewel of the forest king. The warriors barely had time to catch their breath. The bridge behind them had collapsed, leaving nothing but swirling mist and an abyss of shadows. Ahead, the path stretched deeper into the cursed heart of Okija Forest. The air was thick, heavy with unseen energy, as if the land itself was waiting for something. Emika felt it in his bones. They were close. The warriors moved cautiously, their weapons drawn. The whispers had faded, replaced by a deep, slow hissing that rumbled through the trees like a distant storm. And then, they saw it. The Serpent King awakens. The trees parted, revealing a vast clearing covered in ancient stones, twisted vines, and the remains of warriors long dead. At its center lay a colossal cobra, its massive body coiled around a ruined altar. Its scales shimmered like polished onyx, absorbing the dim light of the forest. But it was not its size that made the warriors freeze in terror. It was the jewel. A massive, glowing gemstone, the color of burning gold, sat embedded in the cobra's broad forehead. It pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm, casting eerie light across the clearing. The serpent slowly uncoiled, its head rising high above the warriors, towering like a god. "Mortals," it spoke, its voice slithering into their ears like silk. "You seek what is not yours." Obesai gritted his teeth. "We seek the princess. Let us pass, serpent." The cobra's golden eyes narrowed. "No one takes from Aboro, king of the forest. You have entered my domain. Your lives are forfeit." The warriors braced for battle. A battle against the impossible. Obesai lunged first, swinging his blade at the serpent's thick hide. The sword clanged against the scales, barely leaving a scratch. Dyke followed, launching his spear with incredible force, only for it to shatter upon impact. The serpent struck back. It moved with unnatural speed, its massive body whipping through the air. Ikin was too slow. The cobra's fangs sank into his shoulder. And in an instant, his body turned to stone. The warrior staggered back in horror as Ikin's frozen form toppled to the ground, his face locked in a look of shock. "The venom," Ifena gasped. "It turns men to stone." Aboro hissed, the glowing jewel pulsing brighter. "More will fall." The warriors launched another attack. Obesai slashed, Ifena dodged, Dyke struck with precision, but nothing worked. The cobra was invincible. Emeka dodged a lunge from Aboro and rolled toward the ruins at the edge of the clearing. His mind raced. There had to be a way. Then, his eyes caught something. A shattered mirror. The frame was ancient, its silver surface cracked, but it still held enough reflection to catch the serpent's image. And in that reflection, the jewel did not glow. The serpent's weakness. The realization struck Emeka like lightning. The jewel was the source of Aboro's power. But it only worked when seen directly. In a reflection, it was just a stone. If he could use the mirror. He turned to the others. "Listen to me. The jewel is its weakness." Obesai deflected another strike. "What are you talking about?" Emeka grabbed the broken mirror, lifting it just as Aboro reared back. The serpent froze. Its own image was reflected back at it, and suddenly, the glowing jewel dimmed. Its power did not work against itself. Emeka's heart pounded. "We have to make it attack its own reflection." Ifena's eyes widened. "How?" "Make it strike." Obesai took the lead, taunting the serpent. "Come and face us, beast." He threw his shield at the mirror's base, making the reflection shimmer. Aboro, furious, lunged forward. The mirror shattered. And at that moment, the jewel detached from its head. A terrible scream ripped through the air as Aboro convulsed, its massive body thrashing wildly. The once impenetrable scales began to crack, black smoke pouring from within. The warriors backed away as the colossal cobra writhed in agony. Its body collapsed into itself, turning into dust and shadow, disappearing into the wind. The jewel clattered to the ground, pulsing one last time. And then it went dark. The curse is lifted. Silence fell over the clearing. The warrior stared at the spot where Aboro had stood, the only trace of the serpent king now scattered bones and ruins. Then, a whisper. Soft. Grateful. The warriors turned as ghostly figures rose from the earth, men, women, warriors long lost to the forest curse. Their faces, once twisted in suffering, were now peaceful. The spirits bowed to Emeka and the warriors before fading into the mist. Emeka exhaled, gripping the now dark jewel in his hand. They had won. But the journey was far from over. Ahead, the forest waited. And the whispers had changed. They were no longer warnings. They were guiding them forward. Toward the princess. The giant who guards the gate. The warriors stood at the ruins of Aboro's altar, catching their breath. The colossal serpent was gone, its dark jaw resting in Emika's hands, now cold and lifeless. The mist that once choked the forest had begun to clear, revealing a new path ahead. A strange silence fell over the land. The whispers, once taunting and filled with malice, had shifted. Now they spoke in hushed, almost welcoming tones, as though the forest itself was leading them to their final trial. The spirits are no longer fighting us, Ifena murmured. Obesai grunted. That means we're close. Emika held the jewel tightly. He didn't trust the calm. The forest had tested them before, there was no way it would let them go so easily. The path stretched ahead, winding between towering Iroko trees. As they moved forward, the ground beneath them shuddered. Then it shook. Then it quaked violently, sending birds screeching from the treetops. Something's coming, Dyke said, gripping his spear. A deep, thunderous voice boomed through the air. Who dares walk on the sacred land of the ancestors? The warriors froze. Ahead, the earth split apart as something massive rose from beneath the soil. A towering figure, at least 20 feet tall, stepped into view. His skin was the color of ancient stone, rough and cracked like the very earth itself. His eyes burned like fire, and his breath came out in slow, heavy gusts. He carried a massive war club, its surface carved with glowing symbols. The warriors knew his name before he even spoke it. Enduka, guardian of the spirit gate. The gatekeeper of the forest. The last trial. Land thieves. Enduka roared. You have come to steal from the spirits, as others before you. Unlike them, you shall fall. The warriors readied themselves. Obesai stepped forward. We do not seek to steal, only to retrieve Princess Adanne. The giant slammed his club into the earth, sending a tremor through the ground. Lies. All who come to Okija bring greed. The warriors barely managed to stay on their feet. Ifena cursed under his breath. I don't think he's in the mood to listen. Dyke spun his spear. Then we fight. And with that, the warriors charged. A battle against the Titan. Obesai was the first to strike. He swung his blade at Enduka's leg. The sword bounced off, barely leaving a scratch. Dyke held his spear, aiming for the giant's chest. It shattered against his skin like brittle wood. Enduka let out a booming laugh, his massive hand swatting the warriors aside like flies. Emika barely rolled out of the way before the club slammed into the ground, creating a crater where he had just stood. He's too strong. Ifena shouted, pulling Obesai to his feet. Obesai cursed. There has to be a way. Enduka raised his foot, ready to crush them all. And then, a voice. Elder Chika's words, spoken before their journey, echoed in Emika's mind. Only a heart of humility can defeat the guardian. It hit Emika like a strike of lightning. They were fighting the wrong battle. This wasn't about strength. This was about proving they were not thieves. Emika acted instantly. He fell to his knees. The warriors gasped as he lowered his head in submission. Then, slowly, he lifted the jewel of Aboro toward the giant. Guardian, Emika said, his voice steady. We do not seek to steal. We have taken nothing that is not ours. If the spirits demand it, I return this jewel to you. The warriors held their breath. The earth stopped shaking. Enduka's flaming eyes narrowed, studying the kneeling farmer. Emika did not move. Seconds passed. Then, a deep, rumbling sound filled the air. Not another earthquake. Not another roar. Enduka was laughing. You are either the bravest fool or the wisest man I have met, he said. The warriors exchanged stunned glances. Enduka stepped back, planting his club into the ground. The fire in his eyes dimmed, no longer burning with anger. You are the first to offer something back to the spirits, the giant said. Because of this, I shall grant you passage." The warriors exhaled in relief. Then, with a single stomp of his foot, Nduka split the ground apart, revealing a hidden stone door. The gate to the spirit realm. Beyond the door was a swirling portal of mist. The air shimmered, almost vibrating. Emika stood. "The princess is inside." Nduka gave a slow nod. "Go. But know this, not all who enter will leave." The warriors stepped through the gate. The spirit realm. The air was thick with magic. The warriors stepped into an ethereal world, where the trees were blue and glowing, and the sky stretched in an endless twilight. The ground was soft, almost as if walking on clouds. And in the center of it all, a golden cage. Inside, Princess Adanne sat, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Glowing chains bound her wrists, and ghostly figures circled her, whispering softly. Obesai clenched his fist. "We found her." Emika stepped forward, heart pounding. But before he could touch the cage, a voice echoed through the realm. "Touch her, and you join her." The warriors turned. A new trial awaited, the final trial and the return home. The air inside the spirit realm was thick with power, vibrating with unseen energy. The warrior stood before the golden cage of Princess Adanne, her delicate form barely breathing, her wrist bound in glowing chains of light. Emika reached out. "Touch her, and you join her." The voice was neither loud nor soft, yet it filled the entire space, commanding attention. The mist before them twisted and solidified into a shape. A figure emerged, tall, ethereal, and radiating an otherworldly glow. She was unlike anything they had encountered. Ezina, ruler of Okija, the spirit queen of the forest. Her robes shimmered like moonlight on water, and her piercing silver eyes held no malice, only deep wisdom. The final trial. "Brave mortals," Ezina spoke, her voice carrying the weight of eternity. "You have faced the trials of Okija. You have outwitted the serpent, humbled the guardian, and reached the threshold of my domain." She raised a hand, and suddenly, a second golden cage appeared beside Princess Adanne's. Inside, glittering beyond anything they had ever seen, lay the treasure of Okija, gems, gold, artifacts from long-lost civilizations. Riches beyond measure. Ezina's eyes glowed. "Now, you must choose." She gestured between the cages. "Take the princess, and you leave empty-handed. Take the treasure, and she remains my guest forever." The warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Obesai's fingers twitched. His eyes lingered on the treasure. Dyke's breathing grew heavier. "Do you know what this means?" he whispered. "This could buy kingdoms." Ifena swallowed hard. Generations of wealth. Even Emika felt the weight of the choice. Ezina smiled knowingly. "The forest does not punish greed, it only reveals it." A test. And it was working. Emika stepped forward, his voice steady. "We didn't come here for treasure." Obesai's jaw clenched. "Speak for yourself, farmer." "The people of Omoaka need their princess," Emika continued. He turned to the warriors. "Remember why we came. The spirits never made this journey easy, and now we see why. They wanted to test not only our strength, but our hearts." Dyke hesitated, staring at the golden jewels. Ifena sighed, his face torn, but then stepped away from the treasure. "He's right." Slowly, one by one, the warriors turned from the wealth of Okija. Only Obesai remained, his hands clenching into fists. His eyes flickered between the princess and the treasure. Then, with a deep growl, he spun away. "Fine," he spat. "The mission comes first." Ezina watched in silence. Then, she did something none of them expected. She laughed. A rich, echoing laugh, neither cruel nor mocking. She raised her hand, and the glowing chains on Princess Adanne's wrist shattered into light. Then, the treasure cage disappeared. And in its place, the jewel of Okija, once cold and lifeless, floated into the air, its golden glow returning. Ezina's eyes softened. You have chosen wisely. She extended her hand, and the jewel descended into Emika's grasp. Because you have proven yourselves, I grant you both gifts. Princess Adanne opened her eyes, gasping for breath. The warriors rushed forward, lifting her gently. Ezina stepped back, the mist swirling around her form. The whispers of Okija have spoken, she said. Go. And remember, the forest always watches. With a final whisper of wind, Ezina vanished into the mist. The gate reappeared before them, wide open. It was time to leave. They returned home. The warriors stepped through the portal, back into the mortal world. The moment they crossed, the air changed. The heaviness lifted. The whispers of the forest, once mocking and cruel, faded into silence. The curse of Okija was broken. As they made their way back to Umuoka, word of their return spread like wildfire. Villagers gathered at the gates, gasping as they saw Princess Adanne alive, unharmed, free. King Obi stepped forward, his eyes shining with unshed tears. He embraced his daughter, his voice hoarse. You have returned to us. Then he turned to the warriors, his gaze lingering on Emika. You have all proven yourselves, the king declared. But it was wisdom, not just strength, that saved my daughter. He placed a hand on Emika's shoulder. You, the one they called a farmer, have led warriors to victory. The village erupted into cheers, chanting Emika's name. The legacy of Okija. That night, a grand feast was held. The warriors were honored, their names forever remembered in the legends of Umuoka. And the jewel of Okija, now a sacred relic, was placed in the heart of the kingdom, not as a treasure to be hoarded, but as a reminder that wisdom is mightier than greed. As the flames of the celebration danced under the night sky, Emika sat at the edge of the crowd, staring toward the forest. He swore he could hear something. Not voices of warning. Not whispers of danger. But a soft, knowing laughter, the sound of Ezina watching from the shadows, forever guarding the secrets of Okija. And with that, the legend was complete. The end.